welcome to episode 57 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So we are doing another Would You Rather this week. And this one, I think it's hard, but it's easy at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
So, the question is, would you rather have dinner with your favorite author or have dinner with your favorite character, from a book?
Yeah.
So what would you rather?
I feel like now that we're doing this one, we did something about a favorite character before.
Yes.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, if we wanted to go to their world, they weren't there, or they come to ours,
yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Cool. Yes. Because my immediate thought on this one, again, was Celaena Sardathian would be my favorite character.
Yeah.
Which, I feel like we'd have the same conversation. Would it be, yeah. Or you could have, a romantic dinner with someone, which would be fun.
But,
but super awkward.
I also feel like you need to figure out, what the motivation is. Are you just having dinner, with Celaena Sardathian, are you just having dinner with Celaena because out of the goodness of her heart, you met, she seems to think you're an interesting person and wants to get to know you? Or is she playing into her character and has some sort of motivation? Because Celaena doesn't do anything without motivation. So, is she doing something? Is she doing it to get something from you? What's her motivation for dinner?
Yeah, that's fair. I think my answer is almost based entirely on the fact that I almost think it would be awkward to have dinner with my favorite author. And, what if they weren't as cool as I think they are?
Yeah.
And, it's almost like meeting your idols kind of thing. I don't want to ruin.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to think, too, they're not going to, if you sit down with your favorite author, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, they're not going to want to dissect the book with you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right? And which is sort of your whole reason for wanting to sit and meet them. You want to pick their brain. You want to oh my God, so what made you do this? Or how did you come up with this? They're not going to want to do that.
Yeah.
So I guess the same thing. It's the motivation for the dinner. Is the motivation to become friends? Or is the motivation just, I don't care if you're going to hate me by the end of it. I'm going to ask you all of these crazy questions until you answer them.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good question. I think the other thing, too, is, with characters that you've read books, especially from their point of view, you've been in their head and you know them a little better than you probably know the author of books. So I feel I don't know, I feel that makes it easier. I think I'd go with favorite character just out of the sheer awkwardness of eating dinner with an author.
But why would it be less awkward with a character? Because they're not real?
Well, yeah, that too. I feel you wouldn't be in as much of an interrogation type mood. If you're talking to a character, you'd just be talking about things and trying to relate on some level about anything. Whereas if it's an author, I feel it would just be an interrogation.
Yeah. That's true.
So, yeah, I would pick character, I think.
I totally would too. But It is hard. I'm not saying I would turn down a dinner with an author if it came if the situation presented itself and they were want to have dinner, I'd be yes.
Oh, 100%.
I wouldn't be no, because you are not your character or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I think it'd be fun to pick inside a character's brain.
Yeah. And if I did actually go to supper with an author, I think I would act like a normal person and try to relate to them. I don't think I'd actually interrogate them. I wouldn't be like, what's happening with this book in this situation? Like, you'd kind of want to, but it's not an interview, it's a supper.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, like, I mean, again, I said when we first did this one, it's easy, but it's hard.
Yeah.
But
well,
in this case, it's mostly easy.
And since one of them is impossible.
Makes it easier.
Yeah.
Even though we both picked the impossible one.
It's true.
But it's also because then we don't have to deal with human interactions.
Exactly. I could just daydream about it. I don't have to actually worry that it could someday happen.
Yeah. Okay. That was a quick and dirty one, I guess. So I guess this is just a heads up that we are not a spoiler-free zone and things could get a little saucy. So we are on our last week of Crown of Midnight. Wah.
So sad.
Yeah. I am very sad. I'm always sad on the last week, and then I get excited again the next week. But
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so we are doing from chapters 44 to the very end of Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. So last week we left off with Celaena trying to sort of recover from Nehemiah's death. Chaol sort of realizing that she is actually like from the noble house of Terrasin, and is actually like could be a ruler there of some sort in a province, like if Terrasin got back on its feet. And Dorian trying to figure out his magic. So, I guess Celaena was in a mood and decided she was going to explore the depths of the Forgotten Library, found like a dungeon of sorts, and found that it was like the route to the inside of the clock tower. So, starting off this week, the very first thing we have is Dorian's point of view. So he saw Celaena go into the library with like stocked to the hilt with weapons, and she had her hair tied back. And we know now enough that when she braids her hair back, she means business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is getting ready to go for it. So he also knew that because, he loved her and stuff, apparently.
It's observant, I guess. Unlike any man ever. Or me, to be honest. I'm also not observant. Yeah. I wouldn't notice that.
No. So he decided he was going to follow her. And he said that, like, he was going into the library and he had this terrible feeling that he shouldn't be there. And that, like, the magic that was in his blood was screaming at him to get out. But he also said that he knew that Celaena also shouldn't be there. So he just went further in to try and get her. And it's just sort of like, cool. Like,
sounds like a terrible plan.
Yeah. Like, what? Your magic is telling you not to be there, so you'll just go further in? Yes, that makes perfect sense. But that's literally all we get from his point of view, and then we immediately get back to Celaena. And she is, like, piecing out of that clock tower, because the last sort of encounter she had with it was in Throne of Glass, when Cain and her were sort of, like, fighting, and, she never really liked the feel of it anyway. And so the fact that she was then like, oh shit, I'm inside the clock tower. So then she was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. And then the one last thing she realizes before she like pieces out is that the clock tower is made of obsidian. And she's wondering if that's the same material as the keys. And I think as, like, the rings and the collars, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how do you know what obsidian is? I don't know. I just don't understand a lot of things, but whatever.
It's fair.
So she's, like, headed back. She's back in the room with the one destroyed cell. So she had gone through all these different, like, hallways. There were a different amount of cells in each hallway until she got to the last room. And I think there was, like, only 3 cells in that one. And one of them, the door had been blown off its hinges. There were scratch marks in there. Like, it was not in good shape.
Yeah.
So she was in that one. So she had a heck of a long way to go to get back up. So she said that, like, the entire way down, there was those, you know, those, like, elaborate fire systems before they had electricity. And you would have to, like, light a brazier and, like, oil would, like, travel down, like, a little tunnel-y thing and, like, create fire through the room or whatever. I feel like it was something like this.
Yeah.
So she was her whole way down whenever there was, like, a brazier or whatever to light, she would light it to give the room, obviously, light. And for some reason, the torches that had been in this room were out, even though she had lit them. So she knows that that meant something is out there, and purposely snuffed out the torches. So she did what any normal person would do. She snuffed out her own torch to be in complete blackness. Because that is what makes the most sense.
Obviously.
Like, I don't know what I would have done in this situation, because I would pee. I would probably just pee.
I think I would just start running.
Yeah, I would not have doused out the only light in the room. I couldn't do it.
No.
Anyway. So then all of a sudden she could hear something else breathing. And then she heard, like, a nail scrape the wall. And she just turned off the lights.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Like, I leave lights on in my bedroom and there's no creatures in there. Like, I sleep with the lamp on all night. I could never.
No.
I would die. I would die just from being scared.
Yeah. Like that Supernatural episode.
Yes. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Anyway. Then we get to what I like to call things POV. The creatures POV.
Yep.
So the very first thing is it's like, ooh, fresh meat.
Eee.
So it is hungry and wants to eat Celaena.
It's good idea.
Yes, yeah. It also said that they, in quotes, had locked it down here to rot after tiring of playing with it. And I'm like, obviously the playing with it is an allusion to torture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It also said it had forgotten its name and what it used to be, but it knew how to hunt and knew how to use word marks to open and close doors.
Not great.
No. So, like, this is the problem. So, remember, Celaena thought she saw something hanging out by the library ages ago, and then it disappeared, and she was like, I'm gonna leave the library now, and then she never... And then it's like, oh, we never thought about it again, heard from it again, until now. So, the thing can come in and out, but, like, what's it been eating?
Yeah. I think she said that there were, like, skeletons on the floor. Like, not people skeletons, but, like, mice and rats. And
I
that's
guess.
what I imagine.
But, like, if it wants to eat Celaena, I don't understand why it hasn't, like, taken a librarian.
100%, yeah.
Like, it's living right there.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, apparently the thing had been down there for years. And it only started opening doors after, quote-unquote, he left and took his other things with him. Who he is, I don't know. And I don't know if we ever get 100% clarification on it.
No. Because I guess it could really be either.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
So apparently it says that it always resealed the doors afterwards. So, like, I guess the thing would go out, would hunt or do whatever it wanted, and then when it would come back, it would always reseal the doors. I don't know why.
Very responsible.
Very
creature.
responsible, like, evil thing. But because she was there, it automatically meant that she knew the word marks, therefore she was a part of what had been done to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was mad, bro.
Yeah.
It was resentful. And I would I wish we had more information on this thing because I find it so interesting and I find its circumstance so interesting. I would love to get I don't know. I'd love an autobiography.
Written by it?
Yes, written by it.
Fair.
Anyway, so all of a sudden the eye of Elena flared. So the creature was super sensitive to light. So that's why it hadn't been able to hunt above.
Oh, yes. So it would have been good for her to leave her fucking light on.
Yes! Like, what a moron.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I love her, but...
Well, I get why she did it. She thought that she was better off, and they both couldn't see in the dark, but that's not the circumstances.
No. But the thing also remembers encountering Celaena a couple of other times. First time, like we said before, was at the entrance to the library. And the second time, it smelled her on the other side of the iron door. So, she had shoved, was it like a mirror or like a knife or something? A dagger, yeah. Underneath the slit of the door to see if there was something on the other side. She saw a pair of eyes.
She's it's definitely just a mouse. Everything is fine.
Everything is totally fine. So that was it. So the light apparently from the amulet was not super bright. So it wasn't enough to keep the creature away from her. And it keeps thinking that it hadn't forgotten what was done to it on the stone table. So again, torture?
Yes.
So it attacks her and she swings at it and injures it. And then she just boots it. She just runs for the exit, even though she's got a long way to go. It runs after her. Apparently it's super strong and super fast. And then she's realizing so I guess I think it must go back to her POV for a minute, because then she realizes that the doors with the word marks were there to keep it in, and she had unlocked them all. And so this first part is what she says, and I'm immediately thinking, you saw it out in the library, so obviously it could get out.
Yeah.
Right? And I was I guess,
girl. Does she not realize that it's the same?
No. So she doesn't realize it at first. Well, no. Sorry. She does realize that it's the same, but I don't think it connects in her brain. Mm-hmm. She's just thinking, shit, I opened all these doors and now it's free. But she says, too, that she could tell that it used to be a person, but it no longer had, it still resembled a person, but, its behaviors were not humanoid at all, we'll say.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden after that, she realizes that, the thing has escaped before. I've seen it in the library, so obviously it can get out, which means it can use the word marks. And it's sort of like her moment. That thing knows how to get in and out. I didn't let it out. It can do it anyway. Back to Dorian's point of view. So he's in the cell, not in the cells, but in the hallways, just looking for Celaena. And he hears doors slamming, and then he just hears Celaena go, Dorian, run! And he's like, shit. So they run back to the first door, and like, it's relatively uneventful. So they run back to the first door, and they're just like, you know how when there's something really big and strong at a door trying to push it open, and you've got all the people like leaning back against it, trying to keep the thing from opening the door? That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I guess it was so close behind them that by the time they got out the door and started to close it, the thing had gotten a hand through. And this was the grossest thing ever. They had shut the door on the hand, but the hand had grabbed onto Celaena's shoulder and like embedded itself in her shoulder. Ugh. And so like essentially they were trying to like decapitate this creature's wrist to close the door. So quite icky, I think.
Very icky.
So Dorian's magic sort of, I guess, sensed that they were in danger because his magic was like trying to weld the door shut. But Celaena was sort of like, dude, that iron is gonna burn you out. Like,
yeah,
just don't, because iron is not good for fairies magic users in this world.
Yeah, what is Dorian? Is he just has magic? He's not anything?
Well, but I guess, does he not come from Elena's line?
Oh, true. Yes.
Like,
so yeah, he doesn't have a secondary form like a lot of fae in this world do.
Yeah, I don't even think he would be considered a fae, because I think he's still considered a mortal human, because humans do have magic in this world. Some of them, not all of them.
That's true. I wonder if he's, well, I don't know if we ever get it, but I kind of wonder if he's actually mortal.
I don't know.
Yeah, not really the point, but...
So, anyway, I guess Celaena sees Dorian, like, trying to use his magic, or not even trying to use it actively, because he's not actively trying to use his magic. I think he's more just trying to survive, and his magic is sort of responding to that. So Celaena sees this and is like, oh shit, that's what Baba Yellowlegs knew about Dorian, that he had magic, and now she knows he has magic. His magic, like, he was using it all trying to keep the door closed, and he knew that they had to close it, so he reached for a sword and he chopped the thing's hand off so that they could shut the door completely.
Yeah.
And you'd think that it would slow a thing down.
Doesn't seem like
No, it did not slow the thing down. Apparently having your hand cut off does not really do much.
Yeah.
Celaena tells him that they need the book The Walking Dead because it has like the word symbols in it, so it has a spell in it that Celaena needs. So like Dorian goes and gets it and leaves her to man the door by herself. They find a spell in the book called it's a spell to bind or contain. So it will just contain the creature in the room for them to kill it. But they have to open the door and let it cross the threshold. So essentially it's going to keep the thing contained in a little space long enough for them to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they couldn't just do it on the door. Just keep it contained behind the door.
Yeah, why not just contain the door? I don't know.
I guess they want it dead.
Yeah.
So they let the thing like come through the door, work the spell on it, and it does work. It does stop it long enough for Celaena to cut its head off. But then she goes several steps further. And she then cut up the torso, like cut the limbs off. And I think she cut the torso in more than one piece.
Yeah.
And then stabbed it in the heart.
I guess you never know. Maybe it can regrow.
When in doubt.
Do it all. Get the silver.
Get the salt. The holy water.
Yeah.
Anyway, then she literally kicked all of the pieces back down the stairs into the celly bit place and locks the door. So it's gonna rot down there.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun. And her and Dorian just kind of look at each other. And they're like, who's telling their story first, you or me? Because, like, I guess Dorian has to tell his story of how he has magic. Mm-hmm. And Celaena needs to tell her story of, like, what was she doing there?
Yeah.
What are these word marks that she's using? So, they explain things to each other. They go back to Dorian's room first. And she tells him about the dungeon under the library. Like, he's already seen it. So I feel like she doesn't have to say that much.
Yeah.
But she doesn't tell him that she thinks that it was used by his father, the king. And that she thinks, anyway, that he's the one who made that creature. I mean,
yeah.
Valid hypothesis.
Yeah.
She also said that she thinks that the king used a word key to make it the thing, as well as the clock tower. But
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, valid, I guess. She then asks how he has magic. And Dorian sort of tells her about the first time he used it, and then he shows her the book that he was using to look through his genealogy. And apparently she gets some interesting clues from the book, but doesn't tell him what those clues are. And he says it's infuriating. Fair. I also find it infuriating. Even though I think we do get it. We do get it, like, the next 2 pages, but this is the one thing that, like, I love but hate about SJM at the same time, because she tells you something and then doesn't explain it for potentially ages.
Yeah. 7 books later, not really. But sometimes.
Sometimes. So, you know, it just infuriates me.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dorian sort of asks, like, well, what should we do now? And she just says we should take it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Fair.
Anyway, after she leaves, she goes to Caltain's cell, and she reveals, so we're getting the gratification early, that in the genealogy book that Dorian had showed her, the Rompier, I don't know how they say it. I say Rompier because it looks French.
Yeah.
So the Rompier family apparently had a really strong magical line. As well, when Cain was brought there last year, in the last book, apparently he came from the White Fang Mountains, where apparently powerful shamans had once ruled. So she's starting to understand that there is a link between the magic, or lack thereof, and I guess the king's experiments, I'll say.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like he's trying to cultivate magic users.
Yeah.
So she also sort of realizes that Caltain had headaches, really bad ones, the same way that Celaena had just had headaches in the obsidian clock tower. Mm-hmm. And apparently Roland has started to get the headaches. And both of them were, as of right now, headed to Morath with Duke Parrington. So what does that mean?
Interesting.
If only we'd find out.
Never.
Not for at least 2 more books.
Yeah, really though.
So She also remembers something, and this is not something I would have ever noticed. The creature, when it came out, like when it showed itself, it had been clawing at its head. So, like, maybe almost as if it was also plagued by headaches.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. But again, I don't think we ever hear about this creature again.
Or anything like it.
No. So,
really.
Anyway, and she just sort of wonders, like, what the hell did the king do to this poor person?
Yeah.
So, the next night, like, we skip a whole day. And the next night, she's at the secret library door, and she's sort of just, like, tugging on it. Because even though she overkilled the creature and, like, decapitated it and, like, cut it up into pieces and then stabbed it in the heart, she did all of that, and yet she's still afraid that it's going to come out of the door. So she's, like, at the door, like, pulling on it to make sure it's secure. And then she's, like, thinking to herself how she hadn't slept in weeks. And wouldn't you be dead? Like, I'm pretty sure you would die from exhaustion at that point.
Yeah.
Like, if you actually hadn't slept in weeks.
Yes.
You would not be alive.
No.
I call bullshit.
Yeah.
She sort of realized, like, this creature made her realize the shit that the king could do with a word key. And she needed to figure out where the other two were so that he wouldn't get them and then, like, unleash the power on anything and anyone.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why, but for some reason, she kept thinking back to the tomb and how everything was sort of mixed up. Like, the stars and the constellations were on the floor, the image of the forest was on the ceiling, and she sort of starts thinking maybe it's jumbled and mixed up on purpose. And so she goes to the tomb and asks Mort, the door knocker, if the riddle times rift, which is where on the tomb?
Yeah, it's on Elena's tomb.
Yeah. Is an anagram. So is it like a jumble? So is it supposed to say something else?
Yeah. I completely forgot about this part, to be honest. Like, I don't even think that this was necessary. I think you could have just got it from the first clue.
I agree.
But I just completely forgot that this was even a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so he tells her that it is indeed an anagram. He doesn't even need her to then solve the riddle. She's like, what does it mean? And he just tells her.
Yeah, which is so weird. Out of character.
So he just says that it means, I am the first. Interesting. So I am the first, huh? So I guess this makes her mind start working, and she realizes that the first word key in the riddle is talking about in Elena's crown. That the first word key is in Elena's crown. And I'm just like, how could we not have figured this out like 5 chapters ago?
Yep.
She should have figured it out.
Agreed.
So she checks the crown. There's like a jewel inlaid on the sarcophagus, I'm going to call it. And so she like pries it off, and there was an empty compartment there, like a full-on compartment. So that confirms to her that the king has the word key. And Mort then like tells her that apparently the king was only 20 when he found it. And that he was one of those kings that was sort of always poking around the castle, finding things, reading things he wasn't supposed to read. He was very precocious, sort of like Celaena is, right?
Yeah.
She's always getting into stuff she shouldn't be getting into, and like reading everything. So yeah, he's like, oh, he was messing where he didn't belong.
Yeah.
Do you like my Mort impression?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's the best one.
So she then asks Mort if he thinks the king has all the keys. But Mort's like, nah, I don't think so. Because he said if he did, we would already, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would just already be doomed.
Yeah. Fair.
I mean, very fair. But also, does he have to be such a buzzkill?
I know.
He also asks Celaena if he thinks, or if she thinks, is it a coincidence that magic stopped working as soon as the king started conquering other lands? So, like, magic stopped, and then the king is like, okay, I'm going to start conquering now. So, like, trying to get Celaena to sort of picture these things as one event, I guess.
Yeah.
And so this makes her realize that he used the key to stifle all magic except for his own. And this also makes her realize that obviously this is the event that Elena wants her to stop. And wants her to learn about. And she also realizes Nehemia must have known about this. And at this point, she wishes that she could trade her life for Celaena's own life. Because in her mind, the world needs a Nehemia. Like, Nehemia was one of these, like, a fighter, and she was, like, she wanted to help the world and help her country. And Celaena sort of, I'm not saying she's a coward, but she is saying she's a coward.
Yeah.
She just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she decides to come up with the great idea, famous last words, that she's going to open a portal to a world of the dead to summon Nehemia to ask her about the keys and also to say goodbye. Because she was like, I've been denied countless goodbyes already.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I get it, but I'm also like, fuck.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like, we all know this is going to be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is a terrible idea.
100%.
She also said, so she's like, if Cain could summon the Ritterak with word marks. So that meant she must be able to summon whatever she wants with the word marks as well. Never try and deal with the afterworld. Never summon people from the afterlife. Like, I don't know, how many times do people have to learn this?
Too many.
Too many. It's ridicule.
It is.
So we skip now to Dorian's point of view. He's sleeping. I guess it's late. And all of a sudden, while he's asleep, a king speaks to him in a dream with matching eyes to his. And I feel like this is something that we rely on quite heavily, is the matching eyes to be able to tell who's related to who.
Yeah.
Right? Down the road, especially when we meet more characters. They all just have, like, if they're related, they all have the same eyes.
Yes. I guess it's a thing in this world. I don't know. It is kind of odd.
Anyway, so I guess because of this whole matching eyes scenario, Dorian knows that the king speaking to him is actually Gavin, Elena's husband, mate. And Gavin sort of tells him that his friend is about to cross a line that she's not supposed to cross, and he needs to go help her. And even tells him where the secret passage is, like, in her room.
I just feel like he could have showed up a few seconds earlier. It's a bit late, Gavin. It's a bit late.
I feel like, though, in my mind, he is going to Dorian as soon as she makes the decision to.
Yeah.
But Dorian did something not very smart, and I'm going to talk about it in a second. So he does, though. He, like, point to him, he wakes up and just goes. Like, he doesn't think about it at all. He isn't like, oh, that was a weird dream, and roll over. Like, he, which is probably what I would do.
Oh, 100%.
That
was funny.
That was a weird dream. Good night. Anyway, so Celaena is in, so like she's not in a room, she's in, I guess, a hallway, a passageway. And so she's drawing word marks sort of in an arch pattern to make a door. And she's drawing it in her own blood because apparently the Walking Dead book says that only people with power in their blood can use the word marks.
Interesting.
Well, especially giving credence to this other thing of like the Duke of Parrington and the King sort of hunting for people with potential power in their veins.
Yeah.
Right? Why does he?
He's going to use them as a blood factory for word marks.
Oh, yeah. Smart. Well, you wouldn't want to use your own blood the whole time.
I know.
So she apparently recited the spell, and it worked. Yay. And she was actually really shocked that it worked. I find it really funny that, like, no magic allowed, and then all of a sudden there's magic everywhere.
Yeah.
So the archway sort of lit up to this endless void, and Celaena doesn't see anything at first. She doesn't hear anything at first, and then all of a sudden she hears something, but not something coming from the archway. She hears actually Fleetfoot running down the stairs. Mm-hmm. And he's really excited. She's really excited at the archway. So all of a sudden, Nehemia's figure appears in the archway. So the dog, like, sensed it and, like, came running down the stairs.
Yeah.
So she's obviously unable to cross the line, like, into the land of the living. She's sort of stuck on the other side of the archway. And Celaena sort of tells her, like, that she's sorry for everything that happened. But Nehemia is not... I feel like she's harsher than she needs to be.
Yeah, I agree.
She tells her, like, you are never allowed to open the portal again. Mm-hmm. Like, you're never allowed to do anything like this. Next time, apparently, she says that you won't like, or you might not survive what comes through.
Yeah.
And it's just like, maybe if you guys had told her the truth, answered her questions instead of leaving a big old riddle, maybe then she wouldn't feel the need to summon you in death.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So she's about to, like, sort of say goodbye. But she adds to Celaena that even though she doesn't understand yet, Nehemia knew what her fate was and she went towards it. Because it was the only way to enact change. And that in the darkness of her past 10 years... Celaena was a bright light for her and told her essentially, do not let that bright light go out. And then she just disappears. Like, doesn't even let Celaena say anything.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. But essentially we've got Nehemia admitting that she knew she was going to be killed and she was okay with it.
Yeah.
So she leaves and Celaena's, like, really upset because, again, she didn't get to tell her, say anything.
Yeah.
And she wants her to come back. All of a sudden, she hears a scrape of shoes and looks around, and it's Archer standing there. Pretty boy.
True.
So she sort of is like, how the heck did he get here? And he says to her that Nehemia showed her the entrance to the tombs, like, ages ago. And apparently he's been following her and tailing her for weeks. Which is just creepy, because what is he doing? Watching her sleep?
Yeah, really.
Like,
though.
from the tapestry, like, pulling the curtain back and being like, hoo, 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 hoo.
Ugh.
Like, ugh.
Not good.
And I don't even understand how he got in.
Yeah, I don't... There must be more to these tunnels than we already know.
I guess. So she tries to, like, get to the archway to rub the marks away and close the portal, but it doesn't work. She needs an actual spell that closes it. Like, just rubbing the marks away is not going to do anything. But that book is now over by Archer. So she's sort of in a bad spot.
Yeah.
So, I guess he comes closer to her. He sort of grabs her wrist, and she sees a tattoo that he has. And this makes her realize, I think in last week's episode, we talked about how one of Nehemia's things was a book, the same book that the riddle was written in.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another little phrase that says "don't trust" and then a picture of a wyvern.
Mm-hmm.
So he grabbed her wrist, and all of a sudden she sees that he has a tattoo, and that the picture in the book that said "don't trust" and then a picture of a wyvern, it wasn't actually the king's wyvern.
Mm.
It was this wyvern on his arm, like his tattoo. So she realizes that Nehemia meant to say, don't trust Archer, not don't trust the king. He sort of asks if she had found the word keys yet. He says that he admits that he knew she would solve the riddle. Like, that's sort of, I guess, why he wanted her in, so that she could solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And she realizes that this is why Nehemia couldn't leave and go home. Because if you remember, Nehemia said one week that she felt torn in half because she knew she was here for the greater good of her country, but at the same time she felt like she needed to be home, like dealing with the war. But she said this is why Nehemia was fighting, because this is not just like for the sake of one country. This is for the sake of sort of all the countries. Yeah. Archer is doing his his villain speech.
Monologue.
Yes, he's monologuing, explaining his entire plan. So apparently he wants to get a hold of the keys so that he can overthrow the king and then use that to create their own world in their image. So he is cray-cray.
Yeah.
Celaena obviously says, no way. I'm not doing that. And he tells her that Nehemia actually had the same reaction. And she actually left the group of rebels that she had aligned herself with, like, a week before her death, because he was too extreme. And Archer sort of said, like, he didn't want her to rat them out for being extreme. So he did what he had to do. Essentially, just killed a bunch of people. Celaena sort of, like, figures something out, I'm gonna say, but she wants to hear it from him. So she, like, manipulates him with her body in her, like, sexy times.
True.
So, like, she flatters him, and she says that Nehemia obviously didn't understand what it would be like to be raised the way that both of them were, and that they had to work for everything they had until they became enslaved or sold. And she sort of says, like, I wish you had told me. I would have started working with you weeks before this if you had only told me all of this stuff. Like, so really playing on his, like,
ego,
I guess. She adds that, like, she's super in love with him. Like, as a child, she was like, oh my God, I loved you so much because you understood me. And she was also, he's a moron because she's like, oh, I wish you had told me sooner. I would have taken care of Nehemia for us. And he believes it.
I know, it's so...
Like, really, he believes that she would kill one of her best friends for him? Not happening.
Yeah.
He's just a dummy. So, of course, he buys all this. And then he admits that he set up Councilman Mullison, who did actually hire Graves, but set him up because he knew Graves. And there was a fact that Nehemia was always complaining about the counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that, like, the real reason he kidnapped Kaal was to get her away from Nehemia. And apparently he took an arrow while, I guess, when she went for Chaol.
In the warehouse.
In the warehouse, Archer was hit by an arrow that was meant for her. He, like, stood in the way of the arrow. So he, like, took an arrow for her so that she would trust him. He's also the one that planted the seed on Nehemia's life. So he's the one that sort of planted the seed for the king. I don't know how.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, how's he getting around the king? But I'm assuming he probably planted it with a courtier or a lord or somebody that frequents his services and...
True.
You know. She asked, like, she was like, I don't know why you need me. Like, you're so clever. You could have figured out the riddle all on your own. So, like, she is laying it on thick. Like, very thick. Like, so much so that I'm like, there's no way he could believe you.
Yeah.
But he does.
I know, it's wild.
I don't know. Anyway. So, he admits to her then, he's like, you want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because he knows who she really is. That apparently Arabin told him after she went to Endovier. And he says that if he is to succeed, he needs her.
Yeah.
He also said that, like, he knew they could be good together the moment he saw her with Chaol on the steps that day. So she sort of, like, plays it up, makes a move towards him to kiss. Woo?
Yeah.
He's a dummy.
Yeah.
But, so instead of kissing him, she swings her dagger at him, which I low-key love.
Yeah. Big fan.
I'm also a big fan. So she does hit him, but it's only in the shoulder. It's not a killing blow. So she makes the move to start to fight him when something else appears and, like, comes through the portal. And initially she thinks it's Nehemia who's back to help. It's not. So Chaol, I guess next POV, Chaol is in bed. And he's thinking about the will that Celaena made. And he says that he needs to talk to her and tell her how much it means to him. I feel like she already knows, though.
Yeah.
So I don't...
Also, he doesn't in this book. He does the opposite of talking to her. Yeah. But anyway, unrelated.
So all of a sudden somebody is pounding on his door. Turns out it's Dorian. He says Celaena is in trouble and they have to help. How much time did it take for him to get from his room to Chaol's room? Like, I don't know. I feel like he just went out of the way. He should have just ran to where she is.
To her.
Instead of, like, stopping to get Chaol.
You should have just texted him.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, he does have magic. I'm sure he could have done some form of magic texting.
Yeah.
So, they head to her. So, like, Chaol is, like, really skeptical about, like, this whole thing. But nonetheless, Dorian asked him, so he goes. They go into her room. They have to barge in because it was locked. Smart.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found the passage behind the tapestry that she was always hiding. And Chaol's like, I want you to stay upstairs. In his, like, alpha male, you know, I am in charge sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But Dorian's like, no way in hell. So, like, back off. So they run downstairs and they take in the scene. Celaena is knocked out on the floor. Fleetfoot is injured but protecting Celaena, which is honestly the cutest but saddest part of this entire scene. Little puppy is like, grrr, standing in front of his mistress. And Archer is cowering in the corner with the Book of the Dead, reading from it. Because he's a moron.
Yeah. Like, I just don't understand why he doesn't just help her. You can't kill her. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. So, apparently, there was the thing that came through the archway was not Nehemia, but a crazy creature. It was tall and sinewy, long fingers with claws, white skin like crumpled paper, a distended jaw with fish teeth, more fish teeth. Lots of fish teeth in this book.
Yes.
And milky blue eyes. And it was sort of like it had come through the portal and I guess was like looming over Celaena to try and I guess hurt her. So Kale does the only thing he knows how to do. Yells at Dorian and then jumps in to fight the creature. Which
I can't really be mad at him about, I guess.
I mean, he's finally doing his job.
Yeah, that's true. So Celaena ends up getting her head slammed into a wall and she blacks out. And when she comes to, Kale is circling this creature and he has blood on him. And Dorian has his like hands on her head and he's like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah. Like, "Are you alive?"
Basically, yeah. Celaena isn't fast enough to help, but Dorian's magic like slams into the creature. And she kind of thinks like he has raw magic and it's the rarest and deadliest kind because it can be shaped into any form. So he's kind of put up like a wall here to like push the creature back. Celaena knows they need to close the portal, but Archer has the book and he obviously bolted. So there's no way to really get to him because the creature is in between her and the way that Archer took.
Oh.
So it's unfortunate. Dorian suggests that they like just flee and try to find another way to close the portal or just like leave it because apparently after a while portals just close on their own, I guess. Right. Kale also yells at them and tells them to go. And Celaena's head wound is so bad that like she just isn't very useful right now.
Right.
Kale knows he's gonna die.
Great. Love it. Yeah.
But in his head, he's like, at least they'll both make it. Like, I can give them that. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, I get it's his job.
If he dies, the creature's still running rampant throughout. Like, that's no guarantee that...
Exactly.
Like, if anything, more people will die if he dies. So, like...
Yeah. I don't... There's no good solutions
really,
here.
really try hard not to die.
Yeah. There's a lot happening. Dorian is like trying to drag Celaena up the stairs, but she starts screaming for Fleetfoot, which makes sense. Like Fleetfoot had her back, but Fleetfoot is like currently cowering behind, like where Kale and the creature are fighting, and her leg is too injured that like she can't even really run or get out of the way.
Yeah.
So Celaena like looks over at her and so does the creature and then it turns, grabs Fleetfoot and drags her through the portal.
So bad.
But I'm also like, why? Why are you taking their dog?
Because the thing saw how important it is to her, I assume.
Yeah. But is it like hoping that they'll follow? Or is it gonna like eat the dog? Like I just am so confused as to its motivation here.
I mean, I guess in my mind, I just see this thing as being pure evil and just wanting to inflict the most pain as possible. So seeing her react that way to the dog makes it be like, dog is mine.
Okay. I can see that. Kale runs after them into the portal and Celaena just slams Dorian's head into the wall until he's knocked out.
I love it, but at the same time, like, the only dude with magic, maybe you shouldn't knock them unconscious.
I know, but I'm like, you can't just do that. You can't just knock out a prince. Like, you can. Obviously, she does it, but I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Celaena's only thought is getting KL and Fleetfoot out before the portal closes. Because, like, realistically, if they all go through this portal and it closes, they're fucked.
Well, I mean, if it was just KL and Fleetfoot, if she's out there with them, though, she already did the word marks once.
Yeah, hopefully she remembers enough to, like, get them back. Anyway. So she follows him through, and KL is defending Fleetfoot with his bare hands, like he lost his sword. And
because he's
Celaena
friggin' useless.
Yeah. Celaena doesn't think twice. She just unleashes the monster inside herself.
I don't like...
Which is an interesting...
I don't like this
thing to
term.
say. This, yeah, I know. It's only...
So guys, like, I feel like we're not gearing up to it enough, but like, this is the event.
Yes.
This is like the secret. She has been holding on. This monster inside herself is the secret she has been holding on to for 2 books.
Yeah. And why she knocked out Dorian. It just wasn't for the fun of it. We jump over to KL's point of view, and he notices that Celaena is getting more graceful, that her features sharpen, and her ears change to wicked points. So she's becoming fae. The creature tries to get to KL, but is knocked back with blue flame. Celaena roars, and KL sees nothing human in her. And I'm like, she isn't human. She's fae. You don't need to see something human in her.
But like, this bothers me, and I feel like this is what we've sort of been gearing up for a while. Because this revelation for KL changes how he feels about Celaena, I think.
Yeah.
So her revelation that she is in fact fae and has magic, he, like, more so than before, like, when there was a trust issue due to her lineage, like, he already didn't trust her because she's from Terrasen, but now, oh, she's fae, she's my really big enemy. Like, it really bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is just fear on Kale's part. So, anyway, we get more into that later. But, back in Celaena's head, she's thinking that, like, the change and, like, changing forms hurt like hell, but she just ignores it. She says her well of magic is overflowing, and it erupts out of her, savage and unforgiving as flame. And it's the same way, like, her magic manifested years ago. It's always been fire. Yeah. She sees Kale looking at her terrified and in awe.
Ugh.
And she can smell how human his blood is. Which is just... He doesn't have any dormant magic that is gone. Right. She snarls at him to run because she says she's thinking, like, the magic is a living thing and it wants out, and she doesn't really know how to, like,
control it.
Focus it? Yeah. Because she's afraid that, like, she could hurt him with her magic if she can't control it.
She shouldn't care. If he's in the way,
just kill him. You can't do that. So Celaena runs at the creature, and she can hear roars in the distance. So there's, like, more of this type of creature coming. Yeah. And she hears Kale, like, get through the portal. So she funnels her power into Damaris, which is the sword that was Gavin's sword, which she now has, because I guess she got herself all ready to battle to go to open this portal, which makes sense. And she knows that the sword was, like, made to withstand magic, so she funnels her magic into it, and then she plunges it into the ground, and it cracks the ground until there's a giant cavern in front of her. And she's basically just on, like, a tiny island with a door behind her.
Yeah, like an island of land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like she made, like, the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Her magic ripples, and she turns back into her mortal body, and Kale drags her back through the portal. And I'm like, if she didn't manage to turn back into her mortal body, and he pulled her through as Fae, would she just be Fae now? Like, that would be bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. Very hard to hide,
It would
probably.
be very hard to hide.
Dorian wakes up at this moment as soon as everything's done, basically. Oh, poor guy. Once, like, Kale drags Celaena through this, basically the border back into their own world, Kale drops her as though she's made of flame.
Yeah.
Which was just an interesting way to put it, because it's Dorian's thoughts, and Dorian is the one that, like, said as though she's made of flame, which is just an interesting way to put it.
He didn't see her use any of her flame, did he?
No, he didn't see any of it at all.
Wait, so you're right. That is a very interesting thought for him to have, considering he didn't know that she used flame.
Yeah. And, like, I can also, like, clearly there's something going on between Kale and Celaena, and Dorian can see that, but you'd think he'd be like, dropped her as though she's made of trash, or, like, any other word could work here. But yeah, clearly there's something going on between Kale and Celaena.
Yeah.
Dorian obviously doesn't understand what happened, because, like, there used to be a giant land out through this portal, and now there's just a small ledge and a crevice. Yeah. Kale yells at Celaena to close the portal, but she says that she can't. She doesn't have the book. Celaena says, like, she also doesn't have anything left in her to close the gate, but she says Dorian does. So she uses his blood, and she tries the, like, sealing mark that they used for the creature in the catacombs, that basement, whatever it was, underneath the library. She uses that same mark on each of the word marks that were there earlier, and it works to close the portal, which is, like, very good.
Way to go,
good
Dorian.
Time. Yes. Celaena then looks towards where Archer fled, and she thinks, like, it may have only been a few minutes since he ran down there, and her exhaustion is, like, replaced by her anger. And Kale tries to stop her, but, like, she's got her mindset now. Like, there's no way he can. Yeah. She also thinks of, like, how Archer said he knew what she was, which is obviously a big deal. Like, she's Fae. She was just in this world, and we know she's Fae now. Like, if Archer knows that, that's a giant thing to hold over her head. And I kind of think that she doesn't really think about it enough. Like, I really feel like she should care more that he knows, and maybe... Anyway, it's just weird how this whole thing works out. Anyway, I'll get to it when... And there.
I guess we haven't... Never mind, we haven't really gotten there. Like, he says he knows who she is, not what she is.
Oh, okay. Well, either way.
So, like, I don't know.
I think who she is and what she is were known, weren't they?
I guess.
Anyway. So she, like, runs off after Archer, and he's stuck at the closed grate, and he, like, can't get past there. So she knows he's still around. She goes to the water and looks in to see if he's, like, down trying to swim under the grate, maybe. But she senses him behind her at, like, the last minute, and she meets his sword with her dagger as he tries to kill her, which I also think is kind of, I guess it's self-preservation, but, like, I would just think that he wouldn't try to kill her. But anyway, she can kind of tell that he kept up his training at the Assassin's Keep after she went to Endovir, and, like, she is exhausted. She already, like, was going after the creature. She probably got a concussion. Like, she's not feeling great. he tries to justify killing Nehemia, saying it's for their sake, and she would have ruined them.
Ugh.
I know, I'm like, just shut up about, like, this is not helping you.
Like, but do you know what? The bad guys always do it. They always over-explain.
Yeah. It's just, she's Nehemia's best friend. I don't think you're ever going to come up with a reason that's going to be good enough. So, like, just stop. He also says, like, now that Celaena can open portals without the keys, like, think of the possibilities before them. And it's like, he's just a bad dude. She says she would rather live in the king's shadow than in a world where men like him rule. And this is where Archer kind of goes off the rails. He says his friends don't know what he knows, like about who she is, but he threatens to have his men work on her to get her on his side. How is that going to work? And then he says that Rourke Farron was a client of his before he died, and he told Archer that torturing and killing Sam was the most fun he'd ever had. How does Archer not realize she's going to lose her shit right now? She loved Sam. Like, what is he doing?
He's being stupid. Like, I think we've established now that he has no, like, planning, no, like, he doesn't have a strategic strategic cell in his brain. No. Right? Because, and, like, he must, so, like, Nehemia, we already know, sort of, like, knew about, you know what I mean? Like, she knew about this and sort of, like, I don't know if you want to say orchestrated it.
Kind of accepted, I guess.
Yeah, so, like, she
accepted that this was going to happen.
Knew it was coming and didn't try and fight it. So, like, was he the one that, like, planned her death? Or, like, did she sort of steer him in that direction?
Yes. But even if she steered him in that direction, he got an assassin to do it who was going to be insanely brutal and, like, painful. Like, that just seems unnecessary. Yeah.
But
he's clearly sadistic.
But he's also clearly an idiot.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Archer then tries to use a move on Celaena that she had taught him herself. So obviously she's one step ahead of him, and she, like, rams her knife up to his throat, and he begs her to stop, and he's, like, trying to say the same shit all over again. He's saying he's rebelling for their freedom from the king, and he tries to tell her that she isn't a murderer, but she's an assassin. Like, that's her job. But she was an assassin before, too. Yeah. Like, she assassinated people. That's murder.
Yes. I mean, yes, it is. Like, she wasn't... So, like, I wonder if maybe he's taking this whole, like, the fact that she hasn't been killing anybody for the king. Like, I wonder if she's like, oh, you're not a murderer. Like, you wouldn't do that because she offered him to get out. But, like, I feel like, he's forgetting that she was literally,
her entire job.
And, like, she was real good at it.
Yeah. And she also murdered, like, 20 odd of the guards in Endovier that time. So, like, I think she's a murderer. But then he says Nehemia wouldn't want this. And that makes her hesitate. She thinks of Nehemia telling her not to let her light go out. And she's like, there's only a small flicker left, and it's growing smaller by the day. So that actually really does get to her. And she tells Archer that he's leaving Rifthold tonight with all of his friends, and that if he's still here at dawn, she'll kill him.
I know, and he never takes it. He always thinks he can, like, get out of it. Yeah.
And this is the part that I hate the most, but also don't hate. But she starts to walk away, and he says thank you, I knew
Blech.
you were a good woman.
Blech.
Right?
What?
Ugh. That's just
Ugh.
so gross. Don't say that. Never say that. Like, he clearly thinks he's playing her and that he's won.
And also,
but
I feel like
she
still, like, thinks that they have a chance together. Yes.
And I guess, like, he's been loved for his beauty his entire life, I guess. So and, like, there were brawls over his virginity and stuff. So, like, I get why he thinks so highly of himself physically. But still, you'd think he would have learned how to talk to people. So after he says that, obviously, she sees red again because you don't say that. But she walks back to him and she says, "No, I'm not." And she kills him. Which I'm here for. Like, he deserves it. Also, he knows her secret. He can't live. And he threatened to torture her with, like, things he learned from Rourke Farren, who killed her boyfriend. But it's... Anyway.
Thank God, yes. He was a moron.
Yeah. Of course, Chaol showed up to see the very end, and he missed everything that they said, except for Celaena killing Archer after he was condescending to her. And I'm like, fuck off, no. Chaol. I don't want to be in your head right now. He wonders how much of her fae senses she keeps when she's human, and he's already seeing her as different than human and, like, bloodthirsty. And he sees her eyes, and there's nothing there. And he wonders if she'll kill him too. And he doesn't realize that, like, she's just completely heartbroken. Like, this is not her being a monster. This is her being heartbroken over having to kill Archer, over Archer orchestrating Nehemia's death, over Archer bringing up the fact that Rourke Farren killed Sam and enjoyed it. Like, she is in pain right now. She's not, like, a dead-eyed monster. She's just feeling dead inside because she's sad.
But, like, this is just another reason why I don't hate Chaol. I'm trying not to hate Chaol. However, I don't like him for this at all. Like, he doesn't... He's very much a soldier. He takes things at face value and doesn't dive deeper into them as of right now. Like, so he takes the fact that she's from Terrasen at face value. Oh, so that means that she's my enemy. She's a danger to the king and a danger to Dorian. He takes she's fae. That means she is inherently dangerous. Oh, she killed this guy even though he was a threat. Like, she killed him. She's...
Even though the king asked her to. Like, he was pissed that she wasn't killing him.
He was annoyed that she was just doing it. And then when she told him that she wasn't, he was like, "Oh my God, you're crazy."
Yeah. He needs to get his priorities set. Anyway, so the three of them, Chaol, Dorian, Celaena, and I guess Fleetfoot, so the four of them, go to see a healer now. And the healer is a brown-haired young girl who may come up later. Not in this book, but in the series. Fleetfoot is patched up first, and then Dorian is patched up, because obviously he is the prince, and Chaol. And Celaena just kind of thinks that, like, she was healed when she became fae, so she doesn't need to bother with it. Celaena dismisses Dorian and tells him that she'll meet him later. And Dorian's just, like, watching Chaol be cold as fuck, and he's just kind of confused as what is going on. Celaena explains to Chaol once the healer is gone that her great-grandmother was fae, and she inherited two forms, which is common among fae in this world, but her forms are human and fae, whereas a lot of fae, I think their forms are fae and then an animal. So basically her animal form is human, which I love.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show what humans are in this world. Like, they're nothing. Like, we're all animals.
Yeah. Yeah. So when magic disappeared, So did her ability to shift. And she also says, like, when she was a child, she couldn't control it. And the magic would release when she had tantrums. And, like, it's super overwhelming and she can't really control it. Which is a lot of information to give him.
Yeah.
But, you know. She also tells him about, like, finding the passage and, like, Cain using the word marks last book and about Elena's ghost. And she tells him that, like, she used the word marks today to open a portal to see Nehemia. And she also obviously tells him, like, if anyone finds out about what she is, that she is Fae, she'll be executed, which he obviously knows as well. She also explains, like, Archer was the one who had Nehemia killed, and he posed as Minister Millicent. And she even admits that she knew, like, Chaol wasn't responsible for Nehemia's death, but she can't trust him anymore. They both kind of, like,
but it's sort of like a thing,
that.
like, she can't look at him without seeing that event. So, like, even though she knows it's not his fault.
Yeah, of course.
She just can't. Yeah.
She can't get over it, which is fair. So they both kind of apologize to each other, and, like, I guess the whole, like, him lying versus her attempting to murder him, which I think she kind of did need to apologize for trying to kill him. She does ask how he can even look at her now that he knows what she is, and he almost tells her that he loves her, but she stops him, and I'm like, she clearly feels a lot of shame over being Fae. But him coming back and almost saying that he loves her, even though he's clearly terrified of her, seems not smart. She's just like, she can't hear him say that he loves her. She needs to worry about the word keys, and she can't get him involved. And, like, obviously there's no trust here. So she doesn't want to get back in a relationship with him. She leaves him to go prepare Archer's body for the king, and as soon as she is, like, out of sight, she, like, breaks down and cries. Back to Chaol's point of view, he knows, like, she didn't tell him everything, but he needs time to process all this. He thinks back to her implying that Dorian had power too when she used his blood to close the portal, but he knows, like, it's impossible that Dorian has magic. Of course. And he also thinks he knows Celaena's Fae heritage is, like, why she's afraid of the king, and that this is the most dangerous place that she can be in the world is in the castle. So he's gonna do something about it.
Yeah. Like, choice, consent,
right? Have a conversation. But no, none of those things. So Chaol goes to see his dad, and he asks for a favor, no questions asked. He tells his dad that, like, they should send the king's champion to Wendelin to dispatch the royal family. His father is, like, surprised, obviously. But Chaol explains that they've been unable to break past the naval defenses, so if she kills the king and the prince of Wendelin, like, it'll be an upheaval and they might be able to get in. He said he's going to present his plan to the king the next day, and he wants his father's support. And he knows, like, Dorian is not going to agree with this, but he's not going to tell Dorian her secret. His father agrees, and Chaol kind of, like, says he'll go back home with his father to be the Lord in Anael.
His ancestral home or whatever.
Yeah. But that's what he's going to do if his father
because I think we had the conversation before that his dad, like, is annoyed that Chaol abandoned their home and abandoned his ability, his job to be a lord, to be captain of the guard. And, like, apparently his younger brother is not suited for the role. So, like, this is what his dad wants more than anything, is for him to carry on the Westfall name, I guess.
Yeah, and be a good lord. Because he thinks, like, Chaol will be a better lord than his brother, not than him, I wouldn't say. He seems pretty egotistical, too. Kale kind of thinks to himself, he knows that he can't have a future with Celaena, that she'll never trust him, but he wants her to be safe, and he'd sell his soul for that. Just, like, ask her first, dude. Like, she's not just fucking around here. Clearly she's here for a reason. Like, you can't just decide what's best for her.
But, like, this is his MO. Like, he is a protector. And she doesn't need protecting.
Yes.
So...
yeah.
It's...
I can't really be as mad at this as I want to be because I love the next book.
Yeah. But, like, do you know what?
But you know what I mean.
I do think, obviously, this was the best thing for her. I just...
Mm-hmm.
I don't think his... like, obviously, his intentions were not... his intentions were not what the next book became. Like, what happened in the next book was not his intention. So, guys, like, without spoiling anything, she ends up in a place and she meets some new friends and she gets some more training with her magic. But that's not what Kale envisioned when he sort of puts his plan into place.
No. He thinks she'll just go over and hide out and never come back. Which I can see why he thinks that, but that's just also not her personality. And you'd think he'd know her better. Anyway, Celaena goes to talk to Dorian now because she told him that she'd meet him up with him after. And she explains, like, why she had opened the portal to see Nehemia. But she doesn't tell Dorian about her magic. Because obviously she doesn't want the king to find out. She also tells him that there's someone in the tomb that might be able to help him with his magic, which is Mort. Which is just funny. I don't remember if we get a scene with them together, but I want it. He kisses her hand platonically and tells her he will always be grateful she came into his life. And looking at Dorian, Celaena wonders if maybe there is hope for the future, even with Nehemia dead, because, like, she thinks that he has the potential to be a good king. Yeah.
Too bad.
Which is nice.
Yeah. I guess she's literally been shattered. Like, she needs a little bit.
Yeah. We actually pop over to the king's point of view now, which is interesting. But he's listening to Kale's plan for Celaena, and he thinks it's ruthless, and he knows that, like, only women and children can seek refuge in Wendelin, so only she can go and do this. He also thinks it's, like, an added benefit to get her out of here because he doesn't trust Dorian around her. He also says, like, Celaena brought him Archer's head earlier that day and explained that he was the one that had Nehemia killed, and they were in a secret society together, and he wasn't surprised by that. Like, he knew that, like, a rebel or something. Probably, yeah. So he summons Celaena. Parrington is apparently in Calacola right now, dealing with the uprising, which we kind of got a hint of in that one chapter 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yes.
Where the slave girl, so I'm guessing, like, that sparked a whole uprising from a few of them. And it's apparently being kept very quiet, and the king wishes that Parrington were here to see this and to help him figure out who opened the portal last night and also who killed Baba Yellowlegs. So he kind of thinks about how, like, he invited the carnival to come solely to meet with Baba Yellowlegs, to buy some mirrors, and to get some information about the witches' alliances. So that's interesting. He does think he didn't get any good information, though, and he knows, like, the witches are going to start inquiring about where she is. But he'll be ready because he's breeding mounds in the Farian Gap. And his wyverns need riders.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Yes.
What does that
mean? This is important information.
Yes. Celaena shows up because he had just called for her, and he thinks she's insufferable. And he kind of notes that she always averts her eyes from him, which is probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, like, I wonder if he takes that as something good or bad. You know what I mean? Like, does he take that as a sign of respect / fear, or does he take that as a why? Like, is it a, well, why can't she look me in the eye? Because I feel like we know why.
Yeah. Yes. And everyone will know why by the end of this week. But I think he takes it as fear. I think he wouldn't take it as anything else. But who knows? He gets Kale to explain to her, like, what the plan is. Kill the king, the heir, get the military and naval plans. She smiles and said it will be an honor. And the king thinks of, like, the mark that was on her brow during her battle with Cain in the first book. And how he doesn't know much about it, but he knows it means nameless or unnamed. So that's an interesting tidbit that we didn't really know. But it's still not overly helpful because we don't know what it even means. The king tells her to kill them on the day of the solstice celebration in a few months, and she agrees. And he tells her that she has to leave tomorrow because it's a 2-week journey by sea, and she needs time to be able to, like, infiltrate the palace. And he also thinks in his head that he's going to send word to General Narak to ready his legions and to test his new weapons that he's been forging in secret, like, all these years.
I love this last little bit because it's sort of like setting everything up for, like, for like the rest of the books. Like, stuff that they're talking about now gets brought up again in book, like, 6. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild. Celaena has no idea what Kale was thinking. Like, she can't leave. She has so much shit to do. Like, she goes to the passage and Elena's waiting for her. And Elena kind of tries to tell her, like, Kale was probably just trying to keep her safe and she can worry about the word keys later. And Elena tells her to go and do what needs to be done. And she will stop giving her commands, like, when she stops running from her past. But Celaena's just like, what does that even mean, do what needs to be done? Like, Celaena then tells Elena that Nehemia said she knew her own fate. And Celaena asks Elena if Nehemia manipulated Archer, knowing that she might change the world and Celaena with her death. And Elena doesn't really give her a straight answer. So Celaena kind of, like, guesses that it's likely true that that's what happened, which we kind of talked about a bit. So after, I guess, the meeting, Dorian goes after Kale and asks him, like, what the fuck he's doing, sending Celaena away. And Kale kind of explains, like, if she's capable of opening a portal, she should leave for a while for all of their sakes.
Yikes.
Yeah. And Dorian tells him that, like, Celaena will never forgive him. And Kale lies and says he doesn't want her to let in monsters because she misses her friends. So he's kind of making it sound like she's irresponsible and needs to get out of there for all of their sakes.
Yeah. So that they'll be safe.
Yeah. Which, like, I get he has to say something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, because he's already agreed that he's not going to tell Dorian anything, right? Like, he's not going to tell him, like, that she's Fae and it's dangerous for her there.
Yeah, exactly. He also thinks in his head that he wants Dorian to hate him so he doesn't feel so bad for leaving for NAL. And he tells Dorian one of them needs to start leading, which is just like, woof, that's a dick move.
Yeah.
Celaena goes to Nehemia's grave to tell her that, like, she was right. Celaena is a coward, but she promises she will never stop. She promises Nehemia that she will stop him and free Eelway. And she, like, slices her palm to, like, cement the promise. And she kind of thinks, never forgive, never forget, and that she's going to see this through. Dorian shows up at Celaena's room as she's, like, getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
And he tells her, like, he can change his father's mind and she doesn't have to go. And she says she'll be fine, but he's worried about her. And they kind of get, like, a bit choked up. And it is a sweet scene. She asks him to watch Fleetfoot while she's gone, and he agrees. He also asks her if he can leave some books in her room, and it's like genealogy books and royal chronicles, because he's trying to find out like where he got his magic and why he still has it.
Yeah.
And he's just glad that like she just says that he can leave them there. She doesn't really look at them. She does tell him she'll come back for him. And he kind of thinks he doesn't know what that means, but he believes her.
Aww.
Which is, yeah, it's a sweet, I like that. Big fan. I like them as friends a lot. Their friendship, I'm a big fan. So I guess a little later on, Celaena is waiting at the docks and Chaol shows up. And she tells him, like, she has to come back. Like, she can't stay in Wendelin. And he tries to tell her not to. But she, like, has a few minutes there and in, like, 5 seconds explains to him about the Word Kings, how the king has at least one, the riddle, that Roland and Kaltain are likely part of, like, a bigger, deadlier plan.
Yeah.
So, like, she's trying to make sure that somebody else knows about all of this in case that she doesn't come back, which is very sad.
Yeah.
She also gives him the Eye of Elena and tells him it will keep him safe. And if he didn't send her away, they could have figured this out together, which is, like, kind of a slap in the face. But, like, it's true. He should have just fucking talked to her. Yeah. Let me riot. Fuck. Anyway, then she whispers something in his ear, and she knows, like, he'll hate her forever when he understands what it means. And she tells him when he figures it out, that he needs to remember she would have picked him, and she always will pick him. Will she?
Will she? Maybe.
Anyway.
Maybe.
He says he loves her, and she says sorry, and she gets on the boat.
She doesn't even say it back.
Right? Anyway, so we now get to Chaol's point of view, and he's, like, just thinking of what she told him, and what it was a date. And he knows it's the day her parents died. He's also super conflicted now. Like, what can he do about the king's power and the word keys when he promised his father he'd go to NAL? And then he kind of thinks he didn't tell his father when he would go, so maybe there's some wiggle room in this, like, deal they made. Chaol then goes to Celaena's room to see if he can, like, find any information.
Yeah.
And he doesn't find anything at first, but then he sees the genealogy books that Dorian left there, which is super convenient. And he's looking through them, and he gets to 10 years ago and the date that she gave him. And the passage says, "This morning, King Orlin Galathynius, his nephew and heir, Ro Galathynius, and Ro's wife Evelyn were found assassinated in their bed. Yeah. There is no word about the fate of Ro and Evelyn's daughter, Aelin Ashriver Galathynius."
Can I just, like, I don't understand. She told him the date that her parents died. Did he not already know it because she went out to mourn her parents and he knew that? So I don't understand why telling him again made a difference. Like, he knew the date already.
I guess he was, like, ready to research. You'd think he would have looked this up before now, but I think a lot of people are very dense for a little while.
I guess.
So he checks the royal bloodlines, and 2 spots above Aelin's mother is Mab, and she's one of the 3 sister queens, who are Maeve, Mora, and obviously Mab. Mab is the youngest sister, who when she died became a goddess of the hunt, Diana. And he thinks back to Yulemas morning when they were in church and Celaena got Diana's arrow and how uncomfortable she was. And he's like, oh shit, that was a sign.
Yeah.
He turns the page in the chronicle, and the next day it says, Aelin Galathynius died that day or the night before. Her body hasn't been found, but she is but she is believed to have been thrown into the river. And then Chaol thinks of her telling him that Arobin found her half dead on a riverbank. So, like, the pieces are slowly coming together.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to believe it. But then there's a poem by the Ash River family tree. And it says, Ash River eyes, the fairest eyes from legends old, of brightest blue, ringed with gold. And that, like, finally cements it, because he thinks, like, of how often she averted her eyes from the king, and, like, how he obviously has seen into her eyes, I'm assuming.
Considering they have sex.
Yeah. So he finally, like, is like, oh shit, Celaena is Aelin Ash River Galathinius, rightful heir to the throne of Terrasen, the greatest threat to Ardalan's rule, and the one person who knows the secret to the king's power. And he just sent her to the homeland of her biggest allies, and, like, her mother's homeland, and to her Aunt Maeve. And Chaol sinks to his knees in...
oh shitness.
Yeah, oh shitness is right. Yeah. So that's it. That's the book.
That's the end.
We did it.
We did it. We've reached the end.
Yeah.
I will say on second read through, I like this book a lot more.
Yeah.
Like,
same.
in terms of all 6, it's still, like, probably my least favorite. But there's a lot more Easter eggs, and it's just, I don't know, I appreciated it a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely liked it a lot more on the read through too, but I just like it anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah. So yeah, we did it. We're done book 2. 5 books to go. Eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless we decide to exclude Tower of Dawn completely.
Which is a possibility.
So that wraps it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in this episode for this book, or if you have any book suggestions that you want to hear us do, you can email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co Read.
So next week, we're going to be starting a new book. We're going to be reading From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And we're starting with chapters 1 to 9. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find content. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll see you on the next page.